Hello, YouTube. Welcome. My name is Alckemy. I'm getting situated and comfortable, and today we're going to be talking about advice that I have for myself as a new producer, or for you all as new producers, as we're hitting my 10-year mark, which is freaking crazy. I've picked up on a lot of things. I've run into a lot of traps in the past, and I'm going to try to just summarize some of the tricks and some of the philosophies that I have to try to help you not fall into those, which you still might do it because everybody has their own process of learning. But it's really just for you to sit here and have some experience shared from an elder. Just kidding, I'm not that old. Somebody just followed, thanks. So what I want to talk about is some things that you should consider as a brand new producer that knows absolutely nothing about music production. Some of it is what to invest in, some of it is what to be mindful of or things to avoid, Unison Audio. But aside from that, we'll try to keep it relatively concise, and if there's anything that you want me to elaborate on in the future, then I can either answer it in a comment or we can have another discussion about it in a future video. Quick advertisement. Alckemy.com, I've got presets and stuff, all have demos on there that you can check out before you even think about purchasing something. Please like the video, please subscribe to my channel. I'm on my way to 20,000 subscribers now, and I would love to see that before the end of the year, if it's not too much to ask. Cool. So I've got some notes come up here, and let's talk about some very base things. Everybody wants your money. Everybody wants your money, myself included. I like to think about the idea that I would love to earn your money, but everybody wants to sell you quick fixes or quick things. They'll use marketing terms like fear of missing out, of, get it while it's hot, get it while it's on sale. This is not necessarily like an industry secret or something, but it's very typical for a lot of websites and companies to have something that's like way overpriced and to say that it's on sale constantly, like 8 out of 12 months of the year, and I cannot stand it, and I think that it's predatory marketing. Just know that unfortunately for you, being defenseless without especially like when you hear something that's inspiring, you really got to look out for that kind of stuff. So I don't hate the people at this company, but I dislike the company as itself, so we'll say it as that. Unison Audio is a great example of marketing, or of a company that you want to avoid. I'm going to try not to say too much about it, but let's just, for example, say that like you're interested in buying their Unison MIDI chord pack or whatever. So first of all, chords are public domain. Nobody owns them, and you can have access to those chords just by searching up GitHub and getting those for free. So you do not need to buy things like that. So for somebody trying to sell you something that is already in public domain, to me is absolute garbage. Whatever, that's all I'll say about that. There's also a lot of plugins that people have that are extremely overpriced and do very little for you, but you don't know because you are a beginner producer and your perspective is only this big, where once you get just past even the novice level of production, you're like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. It's unfortunate because you're brand new. I just want you to be aware of it. That's why it's really important for you to do as much research as you can before you buy anything. Trial version or demo every single thing that you possibly can that you're remotely interested in, because that is going to be the ultimate indicator of not only making sure that you feel like you're confident in a product, but more so in a sense of, for one, not being screwed over, but it has to resonate with you, right? In terms of research and stuff, a lot of people are like, yo, what is the best DAW? Or what DAW does Flying Lotus use? That was me. Or what synth does Seven Lions use? That was me. And I thought that if I bought that software, that I was going to make sounds like what they were using, because I think I was under this indication that maybe there was some presets or something that was like, built in. I was like looking for the neurobases and stuff, and I searched for years until I finally realized, I was like, oh my gosh, if I want to do this, I have to make them, because at the time those could not exist inside of just the synthesizer. Like Massive kind of could get you close, but every single tutorial that I saw, you had to do post-processing, or you had to do post like effects outside of your synthesizers in order to achieve those sounds. Now, for somebody like me, like Alckemy.com, those resources are available. There's also some other great resources, but even still, don't go into buying a synthesizer thinking that like it's going to come with all the stuff that you want, if that makes sense. Presets are fine, samples are fine. I would say, like, if there's an artist that you like, see if they have content first. So, if you really like Frequent, see if there's any content that he has to offer, which he does. He's got even some production tutorials and stuff throughout various places on the internet, which will lead into my second thing of, hey, if you're trying to learn, hit up on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or however you can get in contact with these people. Hit up these artists that you like if you're willing to pay them for lessons, because that's how I got to where I was. I went 5 years cold turkey just learning on my own. I finally hit up Copycat, and shout out to Andre for exposing me to this wonderful world of the artists that are some of the big names, and I wouldn't be here without him. It is what it is. And I would totally pay him again, even now with where I'm at. If he had something that, if we wanted to chop it up or whatever, now I'm, actually still paying lessons to somebody that I'm also like offering advice to, or, giving stuff to, but it's just the nature of the business, to Cage, right? I'm like, yo, Cage, you got time for a lesson? And he's like, yeah. I'm still, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm still learning, and I love gaining new perspective outside of what my own limitations are, if that makes sense. So research is really important. Demo everything. When it comes into choosing a DAW, I'm going to summarize a video that I put up, I think like 2 years ago, but honestly, it doesn't matter. Every DAW can make professional music. In fact, if you have a phone, you can pretty much make professional music. Professional music as a whole is a facade. There is no industry standard. It depends on what you want to do, and where the intricacies come in isn't necessarily what you're making, but how you get to it. Here's a great example. Splice exists, Arcade exists. These all have quote unquote professional sounds that you can use in which to serve as loops. There's all of these crazy sample packs that have all the best basses or whatever that you want to use. You don't have to have the sound design. All you need to do is have the intuition to go into the next piece, which is composition is king. Even if you are stuck with, freesound.org, or you're stuck with sounds that are completely garbage, even if you're not a sound designer, learn to work with your limitations and try to reframe you having limitations as actually possibilities for you to draw from, if that makes sense. So I'm going to do a video in the future about how to amalgamate sample packs and how to actually make Splice and things like Arcade actually useful, as opposed to using them for face value. If you're a beginner, it's okay. Use them as face value. Nobody's going to bat an eye and be like, wow, that's whack, man. I can't believe that you use Trap Snare 7. Everybody that's still a professional producer still uses Trap Snare 7. If you don't know what that is, just look it up. It's a producer meme. But once you get past that point, there's going to be this aspect of originality, at least if you're a sound designer, on how you want to approach things. And for me, because I tried to say, all right, well, I'm only going to use, Bitwig first party effects now. I'm only going to use, specific things and try to achieve a similar result. The challenge becomes inspiring, because I'm not really trying to one up, or I'm not trying to impress anybody with anything. I'm trying to create. And remember, when you're doing music stuff, doesn't matter at what point you jump off at, you're trying to create something. Which goes into another point of, make sure that you're having a good time. If you're not having a good time with music, this is not the skill for you. This is not the art for you. Actually, I would say if you're trying to take anything serious, you should play, but play serious. That's a old quote from Bruce Lee. I don't like quoting Bruce Lee, but in this case, it works really well. So instead of investing in software and DAWs and this and that, whatever, exhaust in spending time learning what you have. If you're in Ableton, then there's so much stuff that will take you years to figure out. If you're in Bitwig, there's stuff that will take you years to figure out if you know absolutely nothing. There's tons of resources on the internet. I've got both Ableton and Bitwig tutorials out. There's a bunch of great people that are content creators that are trying to help you become a better producer. Kind of like my last point, there's also a bunch of people that are pretty much wasting your time and trying to, do clickbait. And unfortunately, you're not going to know until you have a decent understanding of what you're doing. It's okay. Don't take everything for face value. Take it all with a grain of salt. And instead of thinking of like, how do I recreate this sound or how do I do this, focus on what it is that they are trying to accomplish as a means of a problem. Look at how they're solving the problem and look at the result that it creates, instead of being like, do I like this sound or is it stupid, right? What is it that they're trying to accomplish, right? Are they comparing a sound that is supposed to be like Skrillex and then it turns out to be absolute garbage? That seems to be the case 90% of the time, but that doesn't mean that there might not be something that you can get out of it. But then there might be some people that's like, how to sound like Skrillex, and they're like, yo, go buy this plugin that I'm affiliated with, right? Unfortunately, that's the nature of today's industry, and the more that you're informed about it, the more that you can kind of navigate through it. And I don't think that those people are bad people. Everybody's got to eat and make a living, but whether or not it's going to be helpful to you is dependent on how you perceive the information, right? So by taking the time to dedicate learning your tools, by taking the time to learn how these generic processes are made when it comes into like making a DAW or like buying a DAW or whatever, like they all 90% do the same thing, right? You got Logic Pro on an iPad now. I would not buy it personally because it's subscription only and I absolutely hate subscription models. That's a whole different story. But you can get something like Nano Studio 2 or a Jambo, right? You can make little beats and this and that. You can get Koala Sampler for $8 on either your phone or iPad and figure out how to sketch beats. But there's a baseline of tasks that every single program that's designed to make music, not necessarily process audio, that's the trick, but make music, that they all have to do. Most of them are going to have a piano roll. Most of them are going to have some kind of audio manipulation, unless if you're still using Reason 4. What a day and age we live in. Sorry, bad joke, but you know what I'm saying? Like, there's general things like manipulation of MIDI, but then you're going to get into stuff that's more nuanced of like, oh, well, this can do random generation. Oh, this has built-in modulators. Oh, I really like the way that this reverb sounds or something. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's all insignificant until you get down into the really gritty stuff. Try not to associate yourself with an artist that aligns with the tools that they use, because even if you love that artist, it's not always going to align with what your needs are, even if you're trying to make the same kind of music. And I know that because I've taken lessons from a lot of people that make the same kind of music, and I've seen all of their different approaches, and it's taken me that perspective to figure out how that relates to me and how I do things now. So take that for what it is. Within the power of limitations, you're going to get bored of your presets, right? You're going to get bored of using the same stuff over and over again. And unfortunately, I'm sorry, but 9 times out of 10, when you get that boredom, it's actually going to be a skill issue. And even now, the lessons that I was talking about taking with Cage is actually not how to use new tools. It's about how to go back and use tools that I already know, but in a new way. There's this analogy with a black belt for doing martial arts or whatever, that once you become a black belt, you don't really learn new stuff. You just go back to the beginning and you go through everything as a black belt, as an expert, to where you have a deeper understanding of the things that you already do. And you're going to find that a lot of these crazy effects and these tools and stuff that you're already accustomed to using are going to show up more and more in these new fancy pieces of technology that might simplify a process, but you're going to be like, oh, I might be able to do that with something that I already know. And it's going to happen, especially if you are involved with the sound design world at all whatsoever. So regardless of all the sounds and blah, 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 composition is actually the most important thing. And I'm not talking about like necessarily getting into music theory, although technically everything falls into music theory because it's all theoretical in the first place. But composition as in, how do I create a compelling beginning, middle, and end when it comes into writing, a piece of music, right? Because we are bound by time. That means that everything has a starting point and everything has an ending point. I don't know of any songs that are still going to this day that started at some point that's a ever-continuing song, right? There are generative sequences, but even then, I can't think of anything that's like, oh, this is the longest running song ever. If you guys want to take that Guinness World Record, go for it. But even still, it's got to end at some time because nothing can last forever, right? Sorry, philosophical stuff. Everything has a beginning, middle, and end. And what matters most is you figuring out how to tell more compelling stories sonically, rhythmically, musically, as in like a musicality sense of like harmony and all that, texture, right? Conveying emotion that comes from you. You're going to have this translation theory when you first start where you are going to have things in your head that you're not going to be able to, you're not going to have the technical skill to be able to express. And even if you do, and you can get really close, like even if you're starting by being able to play an instrument, there's always going to be something that's like not quite the same, unless if you're only writing in like piano or something, right? Especially if you're doing electronic music and you're using experimental sounds, there's all this stuff in context that you have to develop an imagination for. And the best way to do that is to practice. The best way to do it is to audiate and to practice in your head of taking a weird sound and being like, all right, well, what if I went like, bow, 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 bow? And then like you start trying to like come up with ideas around that. I know there's a stupid sound, but here's the thing is once you hear it enough times, bow, 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 it suddenly starts to take you into a whole different direction. And that stupid sound that you absolutely hated that you made because you're brand new to sound design and you can't figure out how to make your stuff sound good changes into inspiring you to make a choice into the next thing. Sorry if I seem like I'm loony and loopy or whatever. It's just the way that my brain thinks. Do you guys remember when we had phones, right? I know that we still have phones, but like way back in the day when cell phones first came out, or like I guess landlines and stuff too, when you first started being able to record a message, like we would record songs, you know, that we thought sounded good or whatever. And when people heard it, they heard that shitty song or like a good song, but through shitty speakers, right? But we knew what song it was. We knew that it was a good song because the composition or the rhythm of it, or there was something about it that stood out, you know? So I remember when, you know, I had Live and Learn from Crush 40 playing, I was like, this is a great way to inspire somebody to hopefully leave a kind message, right? It's a bad joke, but yeah, Live and Learn. You know, I was really thinking about like roasting your ass on voicemail, but I decided from listening to this tune that I'm going to do something nice and learn from my mistakes of being angry in the past. No, but in any case, like it's the composition, right? The composition's always going to be the most important. What to buy as far as what to invest in? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. If only a DAW, don't buy anything right now. Do not buy a single thing. If you are learning sound design, exhaust your resources. Get Vital because it's free. And use the heck out of Vital until you cannot stand looking at Vital for another second, because there's so much within like the tools that you already have that are going to take you way beyond, you know, that new plugin or way beyond these quick fix plugins and stuff. So the first and foremost thing is don't buy anything until, again, you've exhausted all of your resources and you absolutely cannot stand but to look at something, you know, brand new, I guess. The reason why is because there's always a new direction to go to and possibilities are limitless. That new fancy synth that just came out, even though I do plugin reviews all the time, I'm in a different place in music, right? And a lot of times if you look at my tutorials, I'm not speaking to a brand new producer. I'm speaking to the people that have done sound design for a long time, and I talk about how to break things. But even still, I get a lot of inspiration from these new tools that I've had where I go back to these old ones, and I really like, even though I've tried this many things, I pretty much only use this many tools. And that's almost the same thing with any skill set. I was talking to my instructor, we were talking about judo people, and they're like, I know 100 throws. They do 3. Like, and 3 for like a specific particular situation. And 9 times out of 10, they're probably going to use 1, and they go to the other 2 in case if they run into a different situation or the person knows that count or like counters it too well, right? But the smaller the toolbox, that means that you can really focus on harnessing those tools and sharpening those tools, as opposed to, okay, well, I like this kind of sound, or I like this synth for this kind of sound, I like this synth for this kind of sound. You all know me, I pretty much use phase plant for just about everything. It becomes irrelevant because it's all just the same formula of here's a source, apply effects, apply some more effects, mix it, and then contextualize it, right? But that's pretty much sound design in a nutshell, at least as far as subtractive synthesis. When you do start getting into purchasing things, when you kind of cross that threshold, I really believe that instead of buying synthesizers, I would recommend that you unless if you're trying to do like orchestral stuff or contact libraries and all that, which I do have a lot of them. I almost never use them just because they're cumbersome to use. But if you're trying to get into sound design specifically, especially experimental sound design, invest in multi-effects. That is the golden bread and butter, because the source is infinite of what you can access. What do I mean by that? Because we have access to sample packs, we have access to, a lot of free presets. We can literally sample a song. When you run it through a large chain of effects, that is really what most of us are doing these days. That is our secret sauce, is we're just processing things with an ungodly amount of different weird effects that we start to put intention into, that unfortunately you'll develop over time. Sorry, Gretchen is just hammering away at the toy. Stop for a sec, babe. But we pretty much just process things with effects to an ungodly amount until we get something that's cool, and then we figure out how to contextualize it, or we shape it into a kick or a snare or something, that we intend to use it for a specific use case. But you don't really need like crazy fancy synthesizers. You could literally use like 3x oscillator and get something like insane, like Snap Heap would be my first recommendation, or Multipass. A close second would probably be something like Infiltrator. But these multi-effects that allow you to very quickly stack things on top of each other and then apply a seamless workflow of unique modulation, or that being like LFOs and envelopes or randomizers. That's the big one for me, is randomizers. That's how you become like a really pro sounding sound designer in a very quick time. And I wish that I would have known that, as opposed to doing the old school way, which I appreciate that I had to learn, but like, doing stuff by hand and, stacking 50 effects to where like I'm taking the time to create another automation lane and do it like this, another automation lane, do it like this, another automation lane, do it like this, and sit down with the tedium of like trying to make it sound good when I didn't even know what I was going for. We don't have to do that anymore. I have Drambo on my phone, can make craziest neurobasses as I could on the computer. It does take me more time because the workflow is not as streamlined, but as far as the power goes, it's got randomizers, it's got, frequency splitting, it's got filters, it's got everything that I need in order to create something that's interesting. But that interesting stuff that I create does not matter if it sounds like poo in context. So that goes back to that last thing. The final thing that I'll leave you with is, again, unfortunately, you're not going to know what you're not going to know. And that's why I say, like, approach everything with caution, not in a means of apprehension, but caution of really take the time to evaluate if you need something like this. If you are going to buy a piece of hardware or a piece of gear, tell yourself that you are going to put the same amount of hours of how much you had to work for it, unless if like it's gifted to you. But even still, like, take the spirit of it, right? So if you're going to buy a Hydra synth or something for $700, how long would it take you to earn $700 on your paycheck? That's how many hours you owe yourself to learning this synthesizer. It's just a rule of thumb, or like a guideline. Of course, like I would say, like, try to really invest in whatever it is that you do, because unfortunately you're going to buy stuff that you think is going to be like the next best thing, and then you're going to be like, you know what, it's not that cool, or I'm not really interested in it. I've bought and sold gear a ton in a lifetime, and I've learned things from them and then outgrown them and tried to, sell them off. The MPC was a great thing. I did everything that I felt like I needed to learn from the MPC, made neurobass in it, made beats, whatever, and I'm like, great, now I got an iPad. MPC for sale if anybody wants one. And the convenience factor, right? Sorry. But, gas gear requirement syndrome, wow, is a thing. You're going to have it, understand it, but really try to make sure that whatever it is that you buy is going to solve a problem that's going to help push new boundaries of what your current limitations are, right? If you're just trying to buy something because it just came out, especially if it's like stupid expensive, I mean, honestly, like, if you really want to end all be all, I gotta sneeze. Excuse me. iPad. It's got a virtually endless amount of synthesizers, workflow things. If you have a Mac, freaking AirDrop, so being able to export loops and throw them into your whatever, into Process and Bitwig or whatever DAW you choose, is so money. I really think that if you, and chances are you probably already have an iPad or you have a smartphone. So looking at and exploring the apps on these are a lot cheaper. I don't have any affiliate links or anything. It is what it is, right? There's some stuff on here that's $5 that's like $200 on the computer. So get it in while you can. Aside from that, Gretchen's making noise. I think that you're going to be okay. Stick with it. Enjoy it. If you're not enjoying it, stop for a bit, take a break. But the music creation process should be a fun one, and don't be afraid. I'll end with this, to make garbage. Chi has a masterclass. He's got this really awesome saying to where he says, "Don't overthink shit." DOTS. Zane comes into the channel a lot. We say that to each other, and it's true. Don't get so caught up in like, yo, I got to get this specific kind of sound, or I got to get this specific kind of thing. I can't figure it out or whatever. Like, if you're stuck, just make different music or try different things. You might think that you're going to make a specific kind of music and then your tastes change over time. I thought I was going to make melodic dubstep when I first started. I made shitty melodic dubstep when I first started. I never made melodic dubstep again after that. But you know what? I learned a lot of cool stuff from it, and it took me a while to figure out where I am now, which is I like making like, very halftime hip hop oriented beats that are really heavy and stuff. And I've learned and I'm using all the tricks that I've accumulated over this decade to pull into the timbres and the rhythms and the stuff that I am now. And it's crazy because even after all this time, I feel like only in the past year, since 2022, since doing lessons with Cage, have I been like, okay, I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be. But even still, I'm still making other kinds of beats. If you've been watching my streams, I've made a house tune the other day. I make a lot of IDM glitch music. I made some jungle music and a garage tune in the same day. Like, it doesn't have to define you. It doesn't have to, you don't have to be like one type of music producer. Just make beats. Just do it for fun. If that's really what you're trying to do in the first place. If you're trying to get famous and all that, you should probably go read a book on how to market and how to get into business and stuff. And that's a very real thing. There's a lot of YouTubers out here that, put more time and energy into that as opposed to actually making good music, but they're successful. And who's to say what music is good and what music is bad? I have my own opinions, whatever, but nobody can tell you anything. If you find yourself getting into a position to where you're starting to gain traction, make sure that you remember what's important to you, as far as you being a good person, as far as you keeping your circle. Don't feel like you're going to get big and then you're going to leave everybody behind and all that, because that's just a one-way road to misery, especially when you are at the top, because you can't stay at the top forever. And when you come back down, those people that supported you at the beginning are going to be the ones that you're most likely going to come back to. Take care of your people, long story short. If there are people that are helping you become successful in any type of platform, bring them up with you. It's just good practice for the industry. I will say that much. So all in all, as far as a learning experience, I can't really think of anything else that I want to talk about. I just wanted to express some feelings of lessons that I've learned in the past decade. If I think of more, maybe I'll do another video and maybe just rename this as part 1 or so. But this is everything that I can think of at the moment. And I do think that the advice that I have could help you have the right perspective on how to enjoy this process, as opposed to like, the ever artistic struggle of imposter syndrome of, oh, I don't sound as good as this person or whatever. Like, all that shit doesn't matter. Just make music. You want to copy somebody and like try to make tunes exactly the same way that they do. If you're having fun with it, who cares? Don't try to, say that, like, don't try to like, I guess, like, steal other people's art or whatever. I don't condone that per se, but I want to make a Flying Lotus tune and I really love these shakers, so I'm going to try a shaker that's in the same style or whatever, and be happy with whatever result you get, because you put time and energy into it. And that is the truest form of expression, is you being present in the moment and accepting whatever comes out on the other side. And as long as you are willing to put yourself under that position, then there really is no such thing as scrutiny. It's really only your ego saying, oh, this is dog shit, or, your expectations that are usually unrealistic being like, oh, you make shitty music, or, You know, sometimes you get some haters, and that's just the way it is with anything. You wouldn't believe the comments that I get on YouTube, the emails that I've gotten in the past. But you know what? Those people don't respond. Those people disappear. Those people come and go. They know where to, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's insignificant. What are they going to do other than say mean things? People say mean shit all the time. And honestly, you can't stop it. You can't stop people from being mean. You can spread the energy that you have from the inside out and hopefully build a positive community. But you know what? Because anybody is behind a keyboard, they can say whatever they want, myself included, you know? That's why it's kind of trivial and not really worth time. Try not to get involved with it. Try to maintain good ethics and good relations with people that are helping you out. And don't let people take advantage of you. We'll talk more about that another time. Anyways, thank you all so much. I really appreciate if you've listened to a fraction of this. If you want to support the channel, check out alchemy.com. And hopefully this kind of discussion chat or whatever was interesting to you and you learned something. I'll see you in the next one.